everybody. Welcome to another Timeout with Tackle What's Next, where we talk to athletes and executives about how sport has changed the course of their lives and the lessons they've learned in life outside of the game. I'm your host, Danielle Berman. I am the founder and CEO of Tackle What's Next, where we help athletes create impact outside of the game and find their purpose in life after sports. Thank you guys so much for taking another time out with us here at Tackle What's Next. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear from our guest tonight. Tonight we are talking to Reid Meyer. Reid is currently the CEO and co-founder of Athletes to Athletes. Athletes to Athletes focuses on educating and empowering high school student athletes as they navigate the college selection and recruitment process. They believe in helping young people really discover colleges that are holistic fits versus just making decisions purely on athletics, which I think is super important. I'm excited to dig into that with Reid tonight. And they're really challenging that status quo that success in college athletics is defined by how highly ranked your program is, and really instead trying to help people kind of value success by overall opportunities that the college experience in its entirety provides. Reid himself is a former college baseball player at Texas Tech University. He experienced really kind of the difficult college athletic process firsthand. He ended up leaving his sport with burnout, mental health struggles. He ended up getting his undergraduate and master's degree from the University of Texas. And now he looks to really use that personal experience with the college selection process as a former athlete to really help that next generation of student athletes in their future decisions. So I am so pumped to have Reid here with us tonight. I see he's here. He's here in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on screen and we will get started. Thanks again for being on, everybody. Hi, Reid. How's it going?
Hey, Danielle. It's going well. How about you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for taking some time with us tonight. Excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, I want to just first start at the very beginning of your sporting career. So let's go way back to sport number one, day one that you can remember stepping on a field or a court with a ball in your hand or cleats on your feet. What was that first sport, if you remember, and how did you find baseball?
Yeah, so for me, sport number one was baseball. My dad was a college baseball player, so that was always a sport that we connected on. I guess you could say baseball and basketball were kind of the two that I did right off the bat, because the Little League and the YMCA were right down the road. And I just always had an interest in sport, whether it was different kind of play or whatever it might have been. And so from the age of 4, I think I was pretty much had a glove in my hand and was with it all the way until I was finished in college. So it was really sort of a staple of my life.
Yeah, you brought up the staple part, and that kind of leads me to my next question. What do you think that it did for you? Like, what impact did playing sports in general, but baseball specifically, like, make on who you are and your life and kind of where you are right now?
Man, I mean, it shaped who I am, I think is what it came down to. I mean, the relationships that I built in the majority of my life came from sports. The majority of the mentors that I had in my life came from sports. Opportunities that I've had, both, professionally, personally, recreationally, have come from sports. And so, for me, it's something that I think really has kind of been a foundation in every aspect of what I've done. And now it's become sort of what my passion of my career is after I'm done playing. So it's sort of been a full circle experience for me in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you use the word full circle because it kind of shows that you can build upon what you did and what you experienced, right? That it's not just like this thing that you did and now you've moved on. Like, it really touches what you're doing today. And regardless of what work you're doing, I know the work you're doing is very tied to your athletic experience, but it shows that there are some skills that you've taken and impact that you've made. So tell me a little bit more specifically, like athletes to athletes, what is it? I know I described it in our intro here, but what inspired you to create it? Tell us a little bit about like your journey through the college selection process and why that inspired you to start an organization around this process.
Yeah, absolutely. So Athletes to Athletes is a one-on-one advising service for high school kids that want to play college athletics. And we really help them navigate the college evaluation, college selection, and college recruiting process because we think they're all equally important. I think what a lot of kids sort of fall into during this process is the recruiting side and the athletic side really take a front seat, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else about being a college person sort of takes a backseat to that sort of priority. So we're really trying to create that holistic evaluation process when we work with our kids and helping them find a school that fits them, academically, athletically, personally, and financially in a lot of situations as well. So, that's really what we're aiming to do and what our goal is, and how we help the kids that we do. I'd say that it spawned out of my own personal experiences, and it really is one of those moments of do as I say, not as I do. My personal experience through the college selection process was exactly like I just said. It was completely athletics driven. I was motivated by going to the biggest, baddest school I possibly could, which ultimately ended up as a scholarship offer to a Big 12 program, which for me was the definition of success in that moment. And it took me about 3 weeks of being in that particular city to realize that, oh man, I didn't think of what my major was. I didn't think about where I was going to be living, who I was going to be around. This is going to be my reality for the next 3 to 5 years based on if I get drafted or if I decide to do a master's program or
Hmm.
whatever it might be. And so that reality at the time for me, I was a 17-year-old kid. I graduated early, was shell shocking and really hard for me to come back from. And it ultimately resulted in me going to 4 different schools in 4 years and quitting my sport halfway through my college experience because of burnout, mental health struggles. I mean, insert thing here. And so, for me, it was really a realization of like, man, this could be better. I had all of these opportunities and all of these resources. I felt like when I was going through the process, and I still somehow found a way to jump to 4 schools, have a really bad relationship with my sport towards the end of that career path. And, I just felt like there was a better way to manage that process.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you say, you created this because this happened to you, because I do think the recruiting process, it's the flashy and the glitzy and like the come here, we've got the best weight room or we've got the best this, right? But I think it is that conversation of like, well, is this even where I want to live? Is this even like, do they have majors that I'd be interested in taking classes in? I think there's so many other decisions. And you bring up, you ended up leaving your sport. So tell me a little bit about that transition, in terms of stepping back and saying, look, I'm burnt out. I can't do this anymore. I'm sacrificing my own mental health. What was that decision like? And how did you kind of figure out where to go next? What was that like? Did you wish you had certain resources? Just kind of walk us through a little bit your experience there.
Yeah, so for me, it was terrible, to put it bluntly. I mean, the whole purpose of me going to college, the whole purpose of me really doing what I did, I was always the baseball kid. I was the one who I played my sport. I was successful in my sport. That was whether it be friends, family, acquaintances, whatever. I mean, that's how I was introduced to people. And so it really became sort of the core value prop of who I was, or how I sort of understood that to be. And so when I made that transition and voluntarily at that decided to stop my sport, it was really tough. I mean, I was already struggling with social anxiety, depression. I had a eating disorder. All of these things sort of stemmed from the stress of playing my sport and not feeling like I could really succeed at the level that I expected for myself, or I felt that others expected of me, sort of based on the investment that they had made on myself. And when I decided to quit my sport, I mean, I've recently started talking about it more and more, sort of in light of what's happened current events wise in the student athlete space and the college athlete space. I had a really severe suicide scare. I mean,
Mm,
I was on the brink of sort of taking myself out of that situation because I was so nervous that everything that I had done leading up to that point in my life was all revolving around baseball. And if I didn't have that, then what was my value as a person?
mm,
And thank God I held off long enough to have a conversation with my parents, and thank God they were supportive in the way that they were. That sort of helped me sort of walk back from that decision. But in that moment, you really you do it beats you down over time, and you feel like there's no other option, there's no other viable options, and so you know it's tough to go through that process, and it's tough to make that decision. Whether somebody makes it for you or you make it yourself, it can be equally as difficult to do. And so for me, a lot of my process was really just sort of re-identifying who I was and what my priorities were. I didn't know anything beyond play baseball. That was 6 to 8 hours of my day every day. And it was dictated by coaches and dictated by trainers and athletic advisors and whatever it might have been. And so, I end up at the University of Texas my first semester there. And literally it's just like, all right, what do you want to do? And I've never done that since I was 12 years old and started playing select ball. Never done it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting because we need focus, right, to reach greatness in certain things. And you need that like selective mindset of like, this is what I'm putting my energy in 100%. But to your point, there's so much that goes into an athletic career. It could be so hard when you put all this time and effort and energy in, and then you do have to walk away for whatever reason. You haven't invested in maybe other areas of who you are in your life. And so thank you for sharing what you went through, because I'm sure that you're not alone in this experience of the fact that it can be really, the pressure can be really overwhelming, and the pressure, the anxiety, and just the idea of, well, now what do I do with the rest of my life? What can I contribute to the world if I can't do this? And so, I think it's so important that you're sharing this story, because now working with younger and younger athletes that are going into this space, it's so important to have someone that's been there and can say like, this is why this is important. And so I'd love to hear, obviously your experience was a negative one, but you were able to re-identify and kind of come out with this new purpose. And so I'd love to hear, like, what do you talk to these young athletes about, and with athletes to athletes, like, how do you encourage them to think more holistically if they are coming in and saying like, nope, I want D1, big program, big opportunity, I'm going all the way. Like, how do you get them to think in this different mindset? I'm sure it's a challenge, but how do you guys work on that?
For sure. I mean, I think every 90% of kids that come in, and to be honest with you, parents that come in, do have a very intense mindset when it comes to what that sort of definition of success is. And for most people, that's Division I, Power Five, sort of that world. And so I think on two different fronts, I think, we're fortunate, and one of the things that we sort of see as a differentiator for us sort of in this college counseling, college advising space, is that all of our advisors are former college athletes. So we can speak from a place of, hey, I know where you're trying to go. I know where your head is at, but let me tell you sort of what's going on the other side of the field here. I want to help you. I want to share that information with you. I'm not going to dictate how you feel. I'm not going to dictate what you do, but you're going to have every opportunity to know what these things are like and have a very open and broad understanding of the realities of being a college athlete, the realities of being a college athlete at different levels based on what that sort of commitment is. And so I think for us, it creates a lot of credibility and validity to have those conversations with those kids and sort of open up that line of communication. Whereas a lot of times it can be easy to dismiss other folks in that space because they think, oh, you haven't gone through this. You don't know what I'm doing. On the contrary, I know exactly what you're doing and I've done it. So we can talk about that. And then I think the other big piece of it too is just sort of breaking this stigma and breaking this mold that, we believe that there's this universal or unilateral line of success that is sort of this Power Five program at Division I, and helping families understand that doesn't have to be your bar of success. And in a lot of cases, it's not people's bar of success. It's not a rational thing to shoot for, or it's not a healthy thing to shoot for in your overall college experience. If you're going to be riding the bench, as a walk-on with no financial support in a school that is forcing you to take a major that fits with your practice schedule versus something you're truly passionate about doing, is that what you want to do for 4 years? Is that how you want to set yourself up for the next 40, 50 years of your life? Or do you want to explore different options that are going to allow you to maybe play your sport a little bit more, be in a degree you're excited about, be amongst friends and be amongst people who prioritize the same things you prioritize, both on and off the field? And it's just starting that conversation. And I think it's amazing how when you sort of open up the idea that it's okay to think about these things, that opens up a floodgate with these kids. And it's amazing how the conversation changes from, here's my perfect game score, or here's my, NCSA profile number, to, hey, here's some schools that I'm really excited about because I would be able to do this major, or I could live in this city and that would open me up to work with these companies or these different places or these internship opportunities or whatever. That conversation explodes when you sort of break that stigma with those kids. And it's so exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so important because, you may be the first person that's ever come to them to have that conversation, to say, hey, we get that sports is important to you, but what else is important to you? And are you sure that walking through the next stage of your life, which is this, college is a big, whether you go to college or not, the next 4 years after high school, they're big for everybody. You're determining your career path. If you're going to college, you're kind of figuring out what you want to do. And it shouldn't be a decision that's just made lightly or made about one thing. But for a lot of athletes, it is. And I think it's important that you guys may be one of the first people that's ever teaching them to think this way, right? That's ever even coming to them with this idea, this thought process of being like, I can pick where I want to go to college. Wait, I can look up majors. This is so exciting. Like, I think it's so awesome. And I think that's important to share that this is a holistic approach, not saying that sport isn't a part of it, but there's so many different ways that you can be involved, whether it's club sports, whether it's looking at maybe a lower level, Division 2, Division 3, because you don't want to worry about Power 5, D1, all of the things that go on there. There's so many ways to be involved. And I think there's also this whole identity of like, well, figure out what else is important to you. And then we can plug the sports piece in, right? Then we can say, okay, here's a school that has this major, that has this sport that we can kind of combine and figure out. So I love it. I think it's so important. We see a lot of athletes on the other side that leave their sport and they say, well, I wasn't able to explore the interests that I had outside of sports. I didn't have the time. I didn't have the opportunity. And now they're doing it at 25, 26, 27, 30, 32, right? So if you can do that from 16 or 18, that's a leg up on a lot of people, in this experience. So thank you for sharing that. That is awesome. I wanted to ask you too, in terms of your experience and as you're talking to these young people, what do you feel like helped set you up for success, or that you wish you would have done that could have set you up for success, looking back, kind of 2020 vision, hindsight's 2020, right? But, looking back now, right, what do you think, like, if I had done this would have really helped me in that next step in terms of leaving baseball and figuring out my next chapter? Is there anything that stands out to you?
I think the funny part about that is really that question is sort of what stemmed the origins of our entire sort of advising process. And so if we were here for 3 hours, I could tell you about all the different Post-it notes that I put up on my wall over the course of, my last semester in college. But I think the biggest one for me, I think the obvious one is, explore who you are outside of your sport, right? Understand that you are a person first and you are a person who does this thing. And that's great that you do this thing, but there's so many other things you can do at the same time, and it doesn't diminish your care, quality, passion, whatever for your sport. And I think so many times we get caught up in this idea that there's only so many, eggs in the basket and you have to have X number in this in order to succeed. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that, if you care about that and you're passionate about that, there's going to be a pathway for you that fits into your life, and it needs to fit into your life in a healthy capacity. But I think from a professional standpoint, a career-driven standpoint, I really wish I would have done a better job of trying to network and build more relationships with people. I think I put my head down, and if they weren't sort of in a very narrow line or narrow focus of what I was doing, which was really just pitching for baseball on my end, I didn't really give it the time of day. I didn't take time to explore. There were opportunities for me when I was younger. I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area I had pipelines to be able to speak with, I'm a huge hockey fan, the Dallas Stars front office. That could have led to internship opportunities that would have put me in a sport management role much sooner in my life, or built relationships in what is a very close-knit community of people. And I never really processed the fact that, I think the stat that came out recently was like 70% of hires nowadays come from internal recommendations. Mm-hmm. Like the more you speak with people and the more you build relationships, the more opportunities you're gonna create for yourself, whether that's in a business capacity, a relationship capacity, a partnership capacity, a mental health capacity, whatever it might be. Be prepared and be excited to have conversations with different people at different times whenever possible. It's amazing who you'll meet, where they come from, what their backgrounds are, and you can always learn something from somebody. You just have to take the time to meet that person and learn that thing.
I love that perspective, because I think we think of building relationships as like, okay, I need a job, so I need to go network with people to like find out who's hiring. But it's really should be deeper than that, right? I love that you said, you had this pipeline, you could have built this network, and now you're making these relationships, and you're realizing how significant these relationships are, because 100%, the more relationships you have, that's the currency in the world we live in now, in terms of getting access to things, or even, like you said, just having another person to talk to about what you're going through. That's a relationship that matters. And if you're not cultivating that relationship, then when you're getting out of your sport, you might not have that relationship built up with somebody that you can turn to them and say, I just need to talk about what's happening to me. That's building relationships, staying in touch with friends and family, staying in touch with folks that aren't on your teams or aren't in your world of athletics. I think there's a lot around building relationships that we can encourage more and more young athletes to take advantage of, because it's not necessarily just about getting that job, right? Or just about, getting your foot in the door. Of course, that's a great way to do it. But it's also around personal relationships and just building up that team outside of sports that you can go to get away from it all, or just to have someone to listen to you, in a safe space. That's all really important. So I appreciate that emphasis, because, I think it's more than just the job. It's about everything. It's, relationships kind of are key to mental wellness, physical wellness, career wellness, whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think to bow tie that a little bit too, athletes, especially really competitive athletes, almost fall into a bit of a catch-22 in the sense of so many things that you do and so many relationships that you build are in this one tiny specific zone. So it's even tougher for you to extend that network out into a wider range of people that may not do that exact specific thing that you're doing, or be in that exact specific sort of high level association or sport that you're in. And so you have to honestly work harder to make that happen. You're not going to organically come across folks in different worlds that other students or individuals may have the opportunity to do. So you got to really, you got to work for it. It's a voluntary thing. It's not just going to stumble into your lap.
Yeah, for sure. That's great too, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I'll connect with some folks on LinkedIn and, I'll just see what happens. And it's great, but you have to be proactive about it, and you have to keep following up and keep connecting and stay in touch, right? I think a lot of people, I get a lot of messages. They're like, well, it could be great to chat. And then we chat and then I never hear from them again. So, it's great, but there's no relationship there. It's just, we've had a phone call. So I think there's that aspect of, you have to work for it and you have to keep working on it, right? If we just talk once, Reid, we've met, but we don't really have a relationship. If we talk every couple months, yes, we know each other. We know what's going on with each other. We can, send things that we know each other is working on. So it is work and it requires maintenance. It's like any relationship, right? You need to keep in touch. It's like the biggest faux pas of relationship. People are just like, I should connect with as many people as possible. And it's like, well, no, you should connect, with several people and then keep connecting with them, right? And kind of build out from there organically. I think that's the goal. Yeah. So that's great advice. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Quantity is great only when quality is upheld.
I love that. I gotta quote that. I'm gonna steal that quote. Well, Reid, I know we're running out of time here. I have two more questions for you. Mm-hmm. One is around just the work that you're doing with athletes to athletes. One, you guys really created something that you wish you had, in your time frame. I want to know if there are other folks listening today that are like, I want to do something that's going to matter, that's going to build on my own experience and journey. I want to contribute something. Where can they start? How do they create their own organization? Like, what's that first step? And maybe kind of talking about your own experience, like, how do you know where to get started? And if the idea hits you, how to actually mobilize it into a real thing, like you guys have done with athletes to athletes.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I talk to folk about is, passion is like jet fuel. It's amazing what kind of a difference that can make. If you find something that you're passionate about and you find something that you really care about, and it can be, for me, it was, college counseling, college advising, sort of, with student athletes. It can be photography. It can be, who cares what it is? If you're passionate about something, for me, I literally just started, for me, it was a word vomit thing. I just started writing down questions that I wish I knew the answers to, things that I wish I would have, thought about or done back when I was younger, things that I felt like could have been beneficial to me, resources. I started Googling folks who are, sort of in this general space. I talked to folks on the recruiting side. I talked to as many coaches that did recruiting as I could. I talked to as many college counselors as I could, and sort of from those relationships and from those conversations started to sort of find little pockets and little niches of the market where I felt like we were missing and we could really fill in and help. And so from that, it molds, you have this passion, you do this research, sort of organically, you build these relationships, you find a place where you can live in the space where you're creating a product that provides value and provides the service you want to do. affecting the core values and the ethos and the mission that you want to try and achieve whenever you start this idea, and you just sort of build it from there. I mean, I think this has been Athletes to Athletes has been in my life since 2015,
Mm.
and I am in a position where I can now go full time with it. You know, I started that in 2021. It's never gone away. It's just built and sort of, fleshed itself out and come into focus over the course of the last few years. And I think a lot of people want to, I don't want to diminish sort of the idea of hustle culture, but it is this idea that you sort of have to, get this thing fast or create this thing fast. And sometimes that's just not the reality. If you love something and you want to do something, find a way to make it work into your life. Find a way to create time in your day to grow and build in that space. And if you need to go get another job for some years and work something while you do this, if you need to spend more time building relationships, or I know for me, I had to go get, certifications in certain college counseling aspects and things like that. Take the time and go do it. Don't cut the shortcut. Go through those processes, the people you're going to meet, the support you're going to get, the resources you're going to have through that process, and whatever it is you're passionate about is going to help you build in and come into focus of what you can really do to contribute in that space when it's time to do so.
That's so powerful advice. It's such powerful advice because I think, like you said, I think a lot of people feel the pressure to like do it now and do it all right now, like go from zero, like idea to like company. And I love that idea and suggestion that like you have to make it work for your own life, like plug it into your own schedule, your own day. That's really great advice because I think we all look at like all of the problems in the world and the things we want to fix and the changes we want to see. And we are like, what can we possibly do? But I love the idea of taking that passion that you have and just trying to plug it into your week, your day, your month, whatever it is, and building from there. And it's so exciting to see that you've been able to do that really on an incredible scale with building this over the past 5-6 years to where it is something that's full-time because this is what your schedule is now. This is what you can do. This is what you've put your effort and time into. So really great advice. And my last question for you, we want to know if people are interested in getting in touch with Athletes to Athletes, how do they do that? Where can they find you guys? And is there anything that's coming up for you all that you want to promote or push to our network, our audience? How can people connect, engage with you, and anything you want to share that you're excited about?
Yeah. Oh man. So probably the easiest way to get in touch with us if you want to work with us, speak with us, anything like that, athletesToAthletes.com, TO, not the number two in the middle, everything plural, athletes2athletes.com. We actually just have an ebook that we just built out for folks to download. That's free on there. Can contact us, can book a free session. Love to talk to you, want to talk to you. That's probably the easiest way. LinkedIn, funny enough, from professional career standpoints, that's a great place to connect. We're on all the social medias, Athletes to Athletes on everywhere. I blanked and I forgot the second half of your question. I'm sorry.
Anything coming up for you that you want to share outside of where we can find you?
Yeah, no, we've got a couple things coming down the pipeline that I don't think I'm technically allowed to announce just yet, but a couple of different panels that we're going to be able to be a part of here in the later part of the year. We've got some really exciting stuff coming on the product side actually as well. We're really building out, working hard to build out some things that are going to make our services much more accessible to a larger number of people and be able to help more folks. And so we're really excited to sort of be in the trenches on that right now and really hoping to be able to announce some of that in the second half of the year on kind of where we're headed in that direction. So onward and upward, a lot of exciting things. I wish I had more specifics at this exact moment, but they should be coming here in the next month or so. So if you follow us on social, you follow us on LinkedIn, anything like that, we'll be shouting it from the rooftops the moment we're allowed to.
I was going to say, this is just extra incentive for people to go connect and follow you guys to hear about all these things that you're teasing out right now. So Reid, thank you so Yes, thank you so much for taking time with us. It was awesome. This was such a blast. I'm sure everyone watching now and tuning in later will get a lot out of all the advice you shared. So really appreciate it. Be sure to go follow Athletes to Athletes, check out their website. And thanks again, Reid, for being here, and to everyone else for tuning in. It was great.
Thank you, Danielle. This was an absolute blast. Love chatting with you.
Awesome. All right, we'll talk soon, Reid. And thanks again, everybody, for being here. Have a good night.